So, welcome to episode 20 of the Free Your Mind podcast. I'm recording this, I'm videoing this today as well. So, if you're listening on the podcast, then you can watch this on YouTube. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can listen on the podcast, whatever you decide. Some people prefer to, for some reason, look at my face. Other people prefer to listen to audio. So today I want to talk about, and I wrote a blog post on this as well. Some people like to read, so apparently I need to distribute this in different ways. When I say apparently, I mean I've decided that that's probably quite a useful thing to do. And what's fascinating is, as you know, I'll turn up and I don't even know what I'm going to say yet. And when I turn up to a blinking cursor, I don't even know what I'm going to write yet. So there's a massive possibility that this is going to come out very different to the blog post anyway. So if you haven't read it, you might want to read that anyway. And the topic that I was talking about or want to talk to you about is, does chasing happiness and success actually cause the opposite? Does it cause suffering? Does it cause misery? Does it cause stress? Does chasing happiness stop us from being happy? Because what I see in my own life, and as well as clients, is for some reason this is just how we are built. A bit like a cat that has, it's kind of somehow born with its instincts to chase things, or there's rustling, it would pounce on it, or to somehow know that it can climb. For people like you and I, if you're listening to this, we seem to be born with this innate desire to have more, be more, do more, however that shows up for you. It doesn't feel like a choice. For a lot of people I speak to, it's like that mediocrity or complacency are like evil words. Like, I couldn't think of anything worse. Even the thought of doing the same thing for 40 years, living this exact same life on repeat, living in the same house, that seems to fill us with dread because for whatever reason, I don't know why, we feel that we want to keep achieving, pursuing our dreams, becoming better, achieving more, doing more, having more, experiencing more. And yes, that can get caught up very much in ego. And it may have even started off that way. But often, at some point in this journey, we start to notice that something's not quite right. Whilst we are achieving more, doesn't always feel like we thought it was going to feel. And whilst we are living a version of our life now that was once on a vision board, you quickly normalize it. It just becomes normal. You forget that it's so easy to forget that this was once my dream life. This was everything I dreamt of 5 years ago, or a year ago, or 10 years ago, whatever your timeline is. And you forget. You forget that you can get in your car that actually runs, that is nice and gets compliments, and you don't have to worry about it breaking down because it's not going to, probably. And if it does, you can afford to fix it. You forget that one day you couldn't. You forget that you're now in the house that you dreamt of being in. But yet, all you see when you walk in is a to-do list of things that need doing, or, how many things need doing, or that light bulb needs changing. I haven't done that for months. And it's amazing how the material things, the possessions, the awards, the accolades, the success, whatever it is, however that shows up for you, they quickly become normal. And we forget to actually appreciate how far we've come, what we have, or the fact that this was once our dream life. And you probably aren't where you want to be. In fact, I don't think any of my clients are, regardless of how much they have, whether it's tens of thousands or millions, doesn't seem to matter, because we are wired in a way in which we always want more. It feels like there's always something lacking, and there's always more to be had. And what else is there to do anyway? It's like there's not a choice. It's this drive. And again, we could look at evolutionary drivers. If we didn't have this, we'd still be living in caves. Because why would we do anything different? Who cares? We'd just be content and chilled and living in a cave, wearing fur and dancing around a fire. Now, that may actually be preferable, but for some reason, from an evolutionary perspective, we are wired to see what's lacking, to see what's missing, to see what could be better for the progress of humanity. As you can see, that's progress of humanity. That's probably it depends on your viewpoint. I don't know if we've progressed. I think we've progressed in forms of many ways, but actually regressed in many ways too, in terms of happiness, stress, and dumping tons of shit in the sea, and whatever else, cutting down trees, etc. So, but that's come from our evolutionary drive for more. Now, so that's worth acknowledging. It's worth acknowledging that that's there. That's normal, and it has served a purpose in some capacities. So it's just, but what fascinates me is just how, even though we know this voice says, yeah, but I will be happy when I have this. I will be happy when the bank account looks like this, or when I have this many clients, or the business has this many staff, or I progress in my career, or I have this husband or wife, or this many kids, or the voice is always telling us that if only this would happen, then I would be happy. And that voice is a liar. Yet we still believe it. We still keep chasing, because we get there and it doesn't feel the way we thought it would. But then rather than go, okay, interesting, maybe there's a different way of viewing life, maybe there's a different way of playing this game, maybe something's not quite right. Instead of that, we often go, oh, it's because this wasn't enough, so therefore there's something else. Oh, I thought it was this and it wasn't, so it's this. I thought it was £1, but it's not, so it must be £10. Or I thought it was 1,000, but it's not, so it must be 10,000. Or I thought it would be 1 million, but it's not, so maybe it's 10 million. And we just keep chasing this finish line that never seems to arrive. The goalposts keep moving, and yet we keep blindly following it, because habitually we don't know how to do it any other way. We've never been anything else. We've never been anyone else. This is all we've ever known to do, and we just keep doing it, which I don't see as a bad thing. Unless you find yourself miserable, unless you find yourself stressed, unless you find yourself thinking, what's the point of all of this? Unless you find yourself looking back and dwelling on the past and saying, if only I didn't make this mistake, this mistake, this mistake, then I would be ahead. If you find yourself comparing yourself to other people that are more successful, they've got a yacht, or they've got a bigger house, or they've got a whatever it is, a six-pack or bigger boobs, assuming you are a woman or a man that wants boobs. There is always a way that we can compare ourselves to someone else or something else and come up short. If you are looking at the life that you think you want, that you think will make you happy, and comparing that to the life you currently have, and using that as a way of feeling either shit about it, unhappy about it, or that's making you work so hard that you're stressed, your health is falling to shit, you're snapping at your wife and kids or husband, or you're drinking loads because it's the only way you can switch your mind off, then you start to look at, actually, is this dysfunctional? Is this useful? Is there a new way of playing this game of life where I still get to create cool shit, I still get to do cool stuff, I still get to do all the things that I want to do and have the things I want to have and experience the life that I want to experience, but can I do that without being so serious, without being so sucked into the drama or the stress or the ups and downs, or the mental busyness and burnout, the overthinking, the not sleeping, the using substances to somehow switch off, if that's what you do, whether that's food or cannabis or alcohol or other stuff. I don't know. It may be all of those, it may be none of those. It may be a different variation of that. Some people, you can turn anything into drugs. You can turn meditation. I've spoken to people that meditate all day. It's like, okay, yes, that's another form of addiction to bypass life or escape emotions, which is all unnecessary. So the point of my blog post, which is different to this actually, interestingly, was to stop looking into the future all of the time. Because number one, the future doesn't exist. Number two, we can't predict it. I've never met anyone yet that can tell the future. Ever. Reminds me of, I saw this thing on Facebook. I think it was the beginning of COVID, although it might not be real, but it was funny regardless, whether it was real or not. And it was like it was a psychic fair. And it said, due to unforeseen circumstances, the psychic fair has had to be cancelled. That tickled me. Like all these psychics and not one of them could realise. Maybe laugh more than it should have done, but... So I have not yet met anyone that can tell the future, but yet we walk around thinking that we can. Right, okay, if I put this much money here and here and here, and it will compound over 8% over the year, over 5 years, and I have this much, and I'll sell my business here, and that's going to take 4 years, and maybe when I'm this age I can retire, and you get the point, right? We try and plan our life, but we can't tell the future. The future doesn't actually exist, and often that just creates anxiety, worry, panic. You know, I've got to preempt all of the problems. What's going to go wrong? What might go this way? Right, I need to solve this problem that hasn't existed or happened, but let's do it anyway. But the past and the future don't exist. The past is just a memory. If you lost your memory, you lose your past. If your past happened and no one's around to remember it, did it really happen? I feel like, if a tree fell over and no one was there to hear it, did it really make a sound? It's me trying to be funny, but you get the point. So when you think about that, some people dwell on their past. I've got a client at the moment who, super, super wealthy guy, really, really good guy as well. I'm fortunate that I get to work with a lot of great people. Not only are they really good at what they do, not only do they make lots of money and live cool lives, but they're really good people as well. And he is. I've got a lot of love for this guy. And he couldn't enjoy where he was at or what he had, because all he seemed to be able to look at is where he should be if only he hadn't made all these mistakes, or he hadn't made this mistake 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and where he should be if only. And so, yeah, you can definitely use your mind in that way. You can definitely use your thinking against you in that way. That's a really cool way of robbing yourself of happiness and fulfillment, for sure. But the past doesn't exist. Except for when you think about it. When you think about your past, it exists. If you don't think about it, it doesn't exist. Now, you can think about your past if you want, but are you seeing it as, wow, all of these things have led me here? All of those mistakes were lessons that then enabled me to make better decisions and become better. That's actually put me where I am now, or enabled me to have what I have now, become who I am now, or have the relationships I have now, or the contacts. Do you look at your past and see the miraculous nature of life, the chance meetings, the serendipity, the synergy? I can't think of more words, but one of those will land with you, right? Do you see that when you look in your past? Or do you dwell on it and think and long for what you once had, or wish you hadn't made the mistakes you had? Either way, you're just using the gift of thought in a positive or negative way. Neither's right or wrong. Think about it or don't think about it. Think about it positively or negatively. The choice is yours. It's your decision. But how do you want to use this gift of thinking, this gift of thought? It's up to you, right? Now let's go into the future. If you create a positive prediction of a future event, well, then you feel excitement. Still not true. It's just you're using the gift of thinking to create a positive future, which can be useful. For me, that actually, I think my ability to dream and think ahead and fantasize about how life would one day be better, I think that got me through some of the darkest times. When I was broke, when life was shit, when I was questioning myself, when I thought I was nuts, when my wife is looking at me, or girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, saying, when the fucking hell do we get to not worry about money? When do we ever get to pay the bills? When do you quit and get an actual job? When do you give up on this bullshit dream of yours? And I'm stood there like thinking on some level, worrying on some level, what if she's right? What if I'm deluded? What if I'm just a fantasist? But my ability to dream stopped me from quitting. It stopped me from giving up. it was a feeling of, I've just got to do this. I either die or do this. There's no in between for me. So again, you could argue that using my thinking in that way was useful, was positive, if it was thinking that was responsible for that. But what I see a lot of, because that's not necessarily the worst thing, that's not the worst use of thinking, the worst use of thought. But what I see a lot of is people using it to predict potential problems, of which there are many, and then come up with contingency plans and then worry about it and then worry now. And then that changes their whole actions and emotions in this moment. They're stressed and they're anxious about losing everything. But when I ask and probe around, it's always a very big fall. Like sometimes I say, how long can you not work for, not earn a penny for before you would be broke? And it's like a year or 2 years, and it's not like it can just happen like that. It's like so much would need to happen, so much would need to go wrong, but yet they're still using the gift of thinking to create negative futures and then worry about it. And then plan around it as well. It can shape our decisions, like some of you may have parents or be the kind of person that saves for a rainy day. When the fuck is that? Like, just take all your money to the grave in case you ever may or may not need it. And again, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I'm getting you to look in the direction of your thoughts create your emotions create your actions, but really your thoughts create your experience of life. Positively predict the future and you'll be an optimist, someone that always sees the positivity. If you negatively predict all the time, you'll be seen as a pessimist, but you can call yourself a realist, which is basically the same thing. Neither are right or wrong. That's my point here. Because you're fucking making it up either way. Whether you predict positive or negative, you are making it up. Unless you do have a crystal ball, you're making it up. So sometimes I love to reflect on the past, because it's looking at where I was and where I am now, or getting my clients, because my clients are terrible at giving themselves credit for what they've achieved or acknowledging what they've achieved since working with me or since being born. When we look at the past and then compare it to now, we can look at how far have we come? What do we have now that we didn't have? What have we achieved that we dreamt of? But also I love looking at it from a personal perspective. Where do I not lose my temper now that I used to? Where am I calm or happy or chilled where I used to be stressed and anxious? What things don't I worry about that I once did? And I don't mean because the external has changed. For me, it's because my thinking has changed. You can worry about money, for example, regardless of how much you've got. I've worked with many times multi-millionaires who you would think had less money than someone that has basically nothing, because it depends on how you think about it. And the opposite can be true. There's no absolute in this world. Is whatever you think, you feel, and that feels true to you until you realize, oh fuck, that's the nature of thinking. There was a point here, but so picking back up where I was there, I love to measure, how has my thinking changed? What do I see differently in life now? What do I see within my marriage or within my business or with my clients, or how I operate or how I live or how I see humanity or how I react or don't react? What's different now? How have I changed? How have I evolved? Is that good? Because it may not always be. For me, it generally tends to be, because this is my life and my job, so that'd be pretty silly if it wasn't. But not saying I always get it right, as you know, but I mean, when I look back at my first business and fucking all that up, or when I thought I was bipolar, or when I was a grumpy bastard, or when I'd lose my shit in traffic, or when I would go and lay in bed for hours because I couldn't face the world, does that happen less? Am I reacting less? Do I see that clearer now? Can I look back and see what was really going on for me? They're all ways of measuring personal growth, which for me is the most important thing. The more we grow as a person, the more grounded we become, the more peaceful and happy and content we become, the more our capacity seems to open up to create more, do more, have more, but from a less egoic place, more from a playful, fuck it, why not? This is fun place. From a more joyful, fuller place. And the things that you might pursue from that place, they may be different. you start to see what's important and what's not. You start to see and eliminate some of the stuff that's not that important to you. You can simplify your life because you're clearer on what matters to you and what doesn't. But anyway, let me get back to... I'm going to say get back to my point, but there is never really a point. This is just a meandering conversation where you and I go on this little adventure together through discussion, and this discussion will somehow trigger insights where even in the moment you'll get feelings of truthfulness or feelings of, yeah, that sounds true, or, oh, fuck yeah, I see where that's playing out, or whatever that feels like to you. Or after the conversation, some people call it the afterburn effect, where the little new thoughts drop in for the hours afterwards or the days after, and they see things. Sometimes things can change and you don't even know when. You might not even know it's come from here, and I'm okay with that. I don't need the credit for it. It's not me anyway, as we've discussed in previous podcasts. But so there is no point with this. I'm just shining the spotlight on, yeah, look forward. We always will. And we'll always want more, desire more, want to create more, whatever that is for you, whether that's money, houses, cars, writing, poetry, music, or maybe it's enjoying gardening more or being more peaceful and content without having to chase that stuff. I don't know. I can't specify. You will know what's true for you, right? But we'll always want to grow in some way, to evolve in some way, to create more of what we love, to experience more of what we love, to know ourselves deeper, whether you know that yet or not. I'm sure you do, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But I think people like us will always want more. We'll always want to grow in some way, to know ourselves deeper in some way, through that growth, through that experience. But that can be a lighter, more enjoyable thing that doesn't have to rob us of our happiness now. So we can measure backwards to see and enjoy how far we've come and how far other people have come, if you want to look at them too. We can look forwards at where we want to go, where we think we want to go, but be open to being wrong. Knowing that Ferrari may not feel as good as you think it will, or it might. Do you still want to find out? Knowing that it may not make a difference, do you want to just do it anyway because it's fun? Does it still feel playful and exciting? Does it still feel like this feeling inside your stomach that says, yeah? Knowing that you may get it and go, yeah, actually, didn't feel like it did. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't have to matter, right? Knowing that if you're unhappy now, it's not because you don't have enough money, or it's not because you don't have the Ferrari, or it's not because you don't have the wife or the husband or the 7 wives or husbands or the 15 kids, or I don't know what it is for you. It's not because you don't have something. It's not because something is lacking. It's because you're currently using your thinking against yourself to take away your happiness in the moment, in the now. And that's my point. That's my probably the biggest point I've made maybe throughout this entire freaking podcast is the only moment that exists is this present moment. The only moment that exists is here and now. Life is just one eternal moment of now. The past doesn't exist except for a memory, but when it happened, it was now. The future doesn't exist except for an imagined future. But when it happens now. So if you have dysfunctional thinking that robs you of happiness, that always tells you something is lacking, that always tells you I'll be happy when, no matter what moment you are in, future or not, you will continue to habitually use your thinking in this way, which means you will never feel those emotions. You'll never arrive. Because the only thing that matters is how you feel now. The way you feel about your life now, the appreciation, the gratitude, the love for the ones around you, your presence to the people that are important to you. Because we only ever live in the now. The now is the only time that exists. So doesn't it make sense to be happy now? Doesn't it make sense to be grateful and appreciative now? Doesn't it make sense to enjoy our life now? And then later, when later becomes now? But much to my surprise, because I thought if I was content and happy with what I had now, I'd lose all my drive and desire, but that doesn't happen. Life expands and you go, wow. Like, one of my favorite questions for myself is, what if this is all there ever is? What if this is all my life will ever be? Sounds depressing at first, but it actually makes me go, wow, if this is all my life will ever be, if this is my life, if this is the last day that I get to live on this fucking planet, because I'm going to die tomorrow, I'm going to enjoy all of this. I'm going to take the time to appreciate everything. Whether it's my office, or whether it's this setup, or whether it's my plants, or whether it's my kids, or whether it's whatever it is, right? If this is all my life ever will be, I would enjoy it fully. I'd be present to it. I wouldn't want to lose a moment of it. I'd want to enjoy everything that I get to do today, whether that's clients, podcasts, kids, whatever. And from that place, to my surprise, honestly, really, I wish I'd fucking known this years ago. The more I fell in love with my life and become present to it and appreciated it and become content with it, the more things started to show up. The things that I wanted, the things that I was chasing anyway, the more they started to show up. Opportunities, clients, experiences, people. But I was no longer searching for it. I was no longer going, oh yes, this is the thing that will make me happy. Or it was like, I'm fucking good. I'm really good. And then something appears and you go, all right, yeah, okay, cool. And you enjoy that too, because that becomes in the now. It's like, I enjoy what I have, and what I have is what I want. But then what I have and what my life currently is, as that changes, well, then I want that too. It's like, cool. If someone decides to, one of my clients is selling his business at the moment. Like, let's imagine he decides to give me a Lambo. Okay, cool. I'll have that. Like, yeah, but I'm not gonna sit here and cry if I don't, or I'm not gonna sit here and count the days until I can be happy because one day I can drive a Lambo. You know, it's life's good. Life's really fucking good. Even when life's shit, life's good. Even when there's dramas, it can be funny. Like, and you can learn so much from the dramas. And the more I fall in love with my life, and the more my clients fall in love with their life, because I'd say to them, you know, just don't believe me, just try it and let's see what happens, kind of thing. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I don't know, because I'm just on this journey with them. I don't pretend to know, like I've got the keys to the universe, although it's starting to look very, very consistent and predictable and reliable. But same happens for them. The less they need, the more they seem to get. The more they fall in love with their life, the more they seem to have to fall in love with. The more they fall in love with their wife or husband or house or themselves, the more that seems to expand. What we appreciates, as in appreciates in value. There's a quote, but I can't remember it. So let me sit for a second. It was Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if you've listened to his audiobook. Quite interesting. He said, I won't ruin he's been on a similar journey to this, no surprise, because I think all humans are on some level. But he said, what I want is what I see. And what I see is in front of me. Now, out of context, you could think that means, well, I want what I want. I see this and I want it. Monkey see, monkey want. But no, what he's saying is, what I want is what I see. And what I see is in front of me. He's saying, I want this. Whatever this is what I want. Whatever my life is, that's what I want. What I see is in front of me. That's what I want. I don't want anything else. I don't long for anything else. I'm not missing anything. I'm not lacking anything. Eckhart Tolle asks, what in this moment is lacking? Good question. This is what I have is what I want. What I see is what I want. This is fucking it. The more we fall in love with that, we fall in love with, I'm repeating myself, right? I'm really nailing this point home. To my client's surprise and my surprise, their life expands. Every one of my clients becomes more successful. Somehow. Without trying, they become more successful, even though success becomes more of a game to them. their relationships become better. It happens in so many ways. The less they start making, for me, as an example, once I stopped making sex such a big deal, can't even say the word. Once I stopped making sex such a big deal in my relationship, I just chilled the fuck out. I had so much thinking around it. Dysfunctional thinking, actually. I had a client who went to Sex Addicts Anonymous, and as he explained it all to me, I was like, yeah, well, that fucking would have been me. I definitely would have, if that was the way I thought, like as in what's wrong with me, let's go solve it with these things. Not saying that's right or wrong, but that just isn't the way I think. I always had this kind of I'll fix it myself kind of approach, which has served me apparently. But yeah, but the more I chilled the fuck out and just took the pressure off and the need away, I don't need that to be happy or to feel loved, or the more the space opened up for her to come to me and for us to have more sex, but from a more enjoyable. Same is true for money. The less I worried about money and worked out that, right, 9 months from now my money will run out if I don't get another client, so therefore I need this, or like the feeling of never enoughness, the more I chilled the fuck out, the more money expanded for me. And it honestly has showed up in miraculous ways. It does all the time. You get a refund from, you don't even know why, or it's crazy. It is crazy. It is absolutely nuts. Anyway, I'm in danger of taking this way beyond for hours. I could talk for hours, and I don't want to. Sometimes you get to a point where you know that, yeah, the conversation is complete here. The point has been made. Probably a lot to think about, but don't think about it too much. Don't listen to the thinking mind. Don't think. Feel what's true for you. See what opens up. See what fresh thinking comes in. Not habitual thinking, not old stale thinking. What feels true? What do you notice in your life in this conversation? Where are you arguing against it? Where is this thinking mind trying to talk you out of it? Or what thoughts come up that say, yeah, but what if this? Yeah, but what James doesn't know, and that's okay for him or this person. Just notice, where does your thinking go? Or are you filled with a more peaceful, quieter feeling? If you are, then cool, go there. Enter Zen from there. Anyway, that was an interesting one. I enjoyed that. I hope you did too. Pleasure as always. If you do enjoy this, then please feel free to share it with anyone else that you think would benefit. And if you are on iTunes, then feel free to leave a review. They're anonymous, I think. Your name is whatever you want it to be. So that anonymity seems to allow people to be quite honest with their reviews, which are beautiful to read. SoundCloud, you can comment. Or drop me an email. I may not always reply. In fact, I'm pretty shit at replying because, as you can imagine, there's quite a lot. But it's not because I don't love reading them. It's not because I don't appreciate you taking the time. It's just because it's just because that's what I do, apparently. I'm not going to make excuses for it. I'm just shit at replying. So you might get a reply in 2 months, or you may never get a reply, but just don't take that personally unless you want to. Anyway, have a good one. I'll speak to you soon.